Zara, wherein Arra murmured, her voice barely audible, over the comm link concealed within her helmet. "Guide us to the detention center." Affirmative came the reply, Zara's voice cool and precise even as her fingers danced across the holographic displays of the Dawnbreaker's command center. "Uploading schematics to your HUDs now. Remember, you'll need to pass through the central security hub to reach the detention levels." Arra acknowledged the information with a terse nod, her eyes already tracing the glowing lines of the fortress's labyrinthine interior as they unspooled across her visor. They set out across the vast expanse of the loading docks, their steps measured and purposeful, the very image of Malaxian discipline. Around them, the ordered frenzy of the supply operations continued unabated, the clank of loading mechs and the hiss of repulsor fields filling the air with a constant thrum of activity. But as they approached the towering blast doors that marked the entrance to the stronghold's interior, a new sound intruded upon the cacophony, the sharp, staccato bark of an alarm, its wailing cry rising in pitch and urgency with every passing second. "Attention all personnel," a harsh voice crackled across the fortress's PA system. "Intruder alert in Sector 7G. Security teams to full readiness. This is not a drill." Arra felt a surge of adrenaline flood her veins, her grip tightening on the unfamiliar weight of the Malaxian pulse rifle as she scanned the suddenly tense crowds for any sign of a threat. Had they been discovered? Had some flaw in their disguises or forged credentials given them away? The questions raced through her mind even as she fought to maintain the outward calm of a seasoned Malaxian trooper. But as the security teams rushed past them, their focus entirely consumed by the distant threat of Sector 7G, Arra felt a flicker of hope amidst the tension. Perhaps this was the break they needed, the window of opportunity to slip past the fortress's heightened security and make their way to the detention levels undetected. She caught Marcus's eye, the veteran's gaze sharp and calculating beneath the visor of his helmet. A brief nod, a subtle hand signal, and the infiltration team was moving once more, their steps quick and purposeful as they slipped through the chaos and into the labyrinthine depths of the stronghold. The corridors beyond the blast doors were a stark contrast to the ordered bustle of the loading docks, all gleaming metal and harsh, artificial light. Malaxian soldiers and security drones moved with clipped efficiency, their attention still consumed by the distant alarm and the threat it represented. Guided by Zara's schematics and their own finely honed instincts, Arra and her team navigated the twisting passageways, their progress marked by a tense silence broken only by the muffled tread of their boots on the unyielding floor. At last they reached the central security hub, a vast chamber filled with banks of monitoring stations and holographic displays, the nerve center of the Malaxian fortress's formidable defenses. Laying there, standing at the center of it all, was a figure that made Arra's blood run cold. Clad in the ornate armor of a Malaxian commander, his face a cruel mask of cybernetic implants and ritual scars, stood Cormac Virak, the infamous warlord whose name was spoken in hushed whispers across a dozen systems. Arra had heard the stories of Virak's brutality, of the atrocities he and his elite cadre of warriors had unleashed upon the people of Agranis Septim. To see him here, in the heart of the Malaxian stronghold, was a chilling reminder of the stakes they faced and the depths of the enemy's ruthlessness. But there was no time for fear or hesitation. Their comrades' lives hung in the balance, and every moment they delayed brought them closer to discovery and failure. With a silent nod to her team, Arra stepped forward, her disguise and bearing flawless, as she approached the security station at the center of the room. "Commander Virak," she said, her voice a perfect imitation of Malaxian deference. "We have orders to transfer a priority prisoner to the interrogation cells. I need access to the detention level immediately." The warlord's gaze was a physical weight, his cybernetic eyes seeming to pierce through the layers of Arra's disguise and straight into her soul. For a moment that stretched into eternity, she was certain that he had seen through their ruse, that the alarm would sound and the room would erupt into a maelstrom of blaster fire and blood. But then, miraculously, Virak nodded, his attention already turning back to the holographic displays, and the distant threat still consuming the fortress's attention. "Access granted," he growled, his voice a grating rasp of synthetic vocal cords. "But be quick about it. I want all security personnel at full readiness until this intruder is found and dealt with." Arra nodded, her relief a palpable force, as she and her team moved past the security station and into the detention-level access corridor. They had passed the first hurdle, but the true test still lay ahead, beyond the heavy blast doors and the layers of security that separated them from their captured comrades. But they were ready, their spirits steeled by the trials they had endured and the unbreakable bonds of loyalty that guided them. And as the doors slid open with a hiss of hydraulics, revealing the grim expanse of the Malaxian prison complex, Arra knew that they would not falter, that they would fight with every ounce of skill and courage they possessed to bring their friends home and strike a blow against the heart of the enemy's power. The infiltration had begun, and the fate of Agranus Septim hung in the balance. The detention level was a grim labyrinth of steel and shadows, a place where hope went to die, amidst the cries of the damned and the crackle of energy fields. Arra and her team moved through the twisting corridors with a tense, coiled precision, their weapons at the ready, and their senses straining for any sign of the enemy's presence. But as they delved deeper into the heart of the Malaxian prison complex, a growing sense of unease began to settle over them. The cell blocks they passed were eerily silent, the air heavy with a palpable sense of wrongness that set their nerves on edge. "Something's not right," Marcus murmured, his grizzled features tight with suspicion beneath the visor of his helmet. "Where are all the guards? The prisoners?" Arra felt a chill run down her spine at the veteran's words, her own instincts screaming a silent warning. But there was no time to dwell on the implications, no time to do anything but press forward and pray that they could reach their comrades before whatever lurked in the shadows made its presence known. And then, as they rounded a final corner and emerged into a vast, circular chamber, the trap was sprung. The room erupted in a maelstrom of blaster fire and searing energy beams, the walls and floor shuddering under the impact of high explosive rounds. Arra and her team dove for cover, their own weapons blazing as they fought to return fire against the swarm of Malaxian soldiers that had appeared as if from nowhere. "It's a setup," Rafe snarled, his voice ragged with anger and exertion as he unleashed a barrage of ion bolts into the enemy ranks. "They knew we were coming." Arra gritted her teeth, her mind racing as she sought to make sense of the chaos that had engulfed them. Had they been betrayed once again? Had some flaw in their plan or their disguises tipped the enemy off to their presence? There was no time to ponder such questions, no time to do anything but fight with every ounce of skill and determination they possessed. Amidst the smoke and the fury of the battle, Arra caught a glimpse of movement at the far end of the chamber, a group of figures, chained and beaten but alive, being dragged towards a heavily guarded doorway by a cadre of Malaxian warriors. "There," she shouted, her voice rising above the din of combat. "Jack, Nara, and TV are here." The sight of their captured comrades, so close and yet so far, sent a surge of renewed determination through the infiltration team. With a roar of defiance, they redoubled their efforts, pouring fire into the enemy ranks even as they fought to close the distance and reach their beleaguered friends. But the Malaxians were relentless, their numbers seeming to swell with every passing moment as reinforcements poured into the chamber from every direction. For every foe they felled, two more sprang up to take their place, their weapons spitting death and destruction with every passing second. Arra felt the icy claws of despair begin to sink into her heart as she saw her team being pushed back, their line of advance faltering under the sheer weight of the enemy's numbers. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and rapidly running out of options. But even as the battle seemed lost, a new sound intruded upon the chaos, the deep, thrumming roar of heavy engines and the shuddering impact of high-yield explosives. I hope you enjoyed the story so far. It's just part of a much longer and grander story. Please be sure to subscribe and drop a like too. The next part of the story will be in the top left once it's out.